the beauty of Trajan, right, starts with a monument. You don't have to
Yep.
spend your gold of production on it. So you go straight to another settler. I mean,
Yeah.
this is turn 32. This is one of the strongest starts, right? To be able to have three cities in your ancient era, I feel like. I don't.
Well, I,
I've never had a game that where I had more than three cities in the ancient era.
well, it depends on whose ancient era we're talking about. You've seen some of my ancient
All right,
eras.
toot in your own horn again. Yeah. I get it.
But if you're leaving the ancient era with three cities, you are doing amazing.
It
Yeah,
may
you're
right.
like this is golden, and we had so many luxuries.
Yeah, and every city, your first city you settled. Well, let's call it your capital. You settled on a
Yep.
resource, on a bonus resource. The second city you settle on a luxury, immediate
Yep.
access and food, and the third city you're going to settle on a marble.
Yep.
So
is
settling on
more
resources is just like so. I guess you get access so much faster, and that tile itself
Exactly.
for the marble is useless, right?
Yeah. Well, and grasslands cattle tile is worth it. It's a 3-1. It's a 3-1 tile. You're never gonna work it until you got animal husbandry, and this was not an animal husbandry start, so you're not losing anything to settle on it. So yeah, there's like, and that's like when you're looking at settling on resources at any point of the game, if you're ever like, ooh, should I settle on the horse tile or the empty tile? Just ask yourself, how soon am I really going to work that? Like look at the other tiles around you, and if the answer is, oh, not very soon, settle on it because your capital will then work.
And look at that. Every single city is building a district. And as Rome, there is really no other choice for Soger but to build holy sites everywhere.
Well, yeah, because you can buy everything but district.
That's
Districts
right.
and wonder are the only things that you cannot buy. So that's what I'm going to use my production for. I mean, I say it all the time. Production is the worst currency type in the game because you have to spend it every turn. And the thing that makes it weakest is you have to know what you're spending it on. And if you ever change your mind, if you ever stop production on something, you've wasted all those turns.
But I wanted to point out your first governor choice in this case.
Yeah.
We met, 4 city-states right now?
Yeah.
And Kabul, it was the only city-state that you had an envoy to, which you met first. Meaning
Yeah.
that if you send the money, you get suzerainty. My question to you is, you pick the money with only meeting one city-state first. I usually think that I still have to earn, because you need 3 envoys, right, to become a suzerain in general. If the rest of the city-states have 0 envoys from me, and I have to earn them somehow, how useful is our money? Or were you worried about your era score at
I
that particular?
I was super worried about era score in
Gotcha.
Soulstar. The one huge negative about this start is that with Basil, Alexander, where they were, it was going to really limit era score things because you're not going to be able to push through their territory and find wonders.
Yeah, exploration was
Yeah.
really limited on this map.
And also, because we were playing a culture game, I wanted ocean involved. So this is just a straight continents map. And just knowing how the maps are generated, I knew there was only so many wonders that could be on our part of the map because they're, for the most part, equal distribution. So I started like just doing the math in my head, and I was like, the options for era score are super limited. There wasn't tribal villages. There wasn't anything.
That decision makes total sense. And
Yeah.
you know what? I think by the end of the ancient era, you actually overshoot your
Oh yeah,
era score.
I get way past it, but
But
I
look
would-
what happened just now. I
Yeah.
just want everybody to appreciate the fact that turn 35, every single one of them has been bribed to friendship. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen Soger's games, and I am trying to do the same thing now. And when I replayed this game, it was exactly the same thing was happening. I just bribed them into friendship eventually. It's possible.
It's so much easier.
When people say like, "Oh, it's impossible to be friends with AI," I mean, we're showing you here that is extremely easy, provided you have the resources, right? Because without
Yeah.
gold and without these gifts, it would not be possible.
Well, and like I said, that's why you have to know like what they value. Like civilizations like Georgia, Greece under Pericles, America, they buy diplomatic favor right away. So if you have diplomatic favor in the ancient era, you can give that as a gift, and that will give disposition with those civilizations. If you're generating horses or iron, you can give that away. Anything that you can give away to get disposition, to get friends with a AI civilization is a better deal than going to war. I don't care how much you invest. A friendship is always a better purchase. It just is.
Here's the question, right? Like you
Yep.
are going to Hitman mentality soon. Your faith is at 0 right now, meaning that you're not going to have any faith to spend to actually buy settlers or builders in the
Correct.
next, whatever, I don't know, 20 turns, let's say.
You are very accurate. Yes.
So at that point, what are you thinking? Because you made this investment in holy sites.
Yeah, I'm not building faith now, but once they all finish, I'm going to be building something like 10 faith per turn, which is 9 turns for a builder, which means I can invest my production into something else and buy that builder in 9 turns. It's something like 20 turns for a settler, which means instead of investing production into a settler when I have other builds that are more important, I can do that. Right now, there's only so many things I can build in my capital, so I'm building that settler. But I'm also building that settler knowing that I'm going into classical era with no faith.
So here I loaded my save, right? Turn 50, because turn 50 is about where you switch eras, right?
Yep.
From ancient to classical. Obviously, I'm taking a little bit longer, not a little bit, but I guess longer with culture progression. And it's interesting that I noticed that your choice of government, right? You usually tend to go classical just so that you can get access to the legacy card.
Yes.
Right? Because then after so many turns, or when you plan to work on the wonders, you switch to autocracy, and then you just stay until the next government tier. Is that right?
It depends on how soon I can get my government plaza building. Because you have to build your government plaza building to get the legacy card. And now, of your first tier governments, the Classic Republic card is the strongest regardless of victory type. Even the oligarchy one that gives you +4 combat strength, the housing and one amenity in every city with a district is just so strong. It's one of those like hidden overpowered things because you're just the housing and amenity in every city.
Yeah, so early, right? So early in the game.
So I pick up that card, but it's always a toss-up of, because you want to get Oracle, you want to get Apadana, you want to get these wonders. So I have to if I can get my government plaza built before the end of the ancient era, I'll usually go Classic Republic first. If I don't, I always wind up in this horrible situation where I don't build my government plaza building till like the end of the classical era because I want to get all the wonders.
So that's basically what's going to happen to me. Although, no, I'm going to chop out, because my whole point is that I have 200 faith, I have +15 faith being generated. So the faith production for I am in classical era, I guess, now.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent. And actually, I think I bought my first, so I had more faith, my first settler with faith.
Yeah.
So I only have 2 cities, though, right? And my cities are, I mean, as you can see, there's a different development from what Soger has, because Byzantium just moved in and settled. So I have to sort of counter them with this city, settling on the piggies.
Which is a good secondary setup. I was debating doing the truffles. It all was coming down to timing. I saw I was going to get early empire. I saw all the stuff was lining up, and I'd have that positive disposition. Sorry. But if the timing had been different, I wouldn't have settled on the truffles. I would have probably settled to the north of the truffles. But that is a very good secondary location.
Problem is the number of cities, right? It's just
Yeah.
not enough. It's just not enough. But
Well,
it's still doable at this point.
it's strong. Like it's not enough if you're trying to win the game as fast as possible.
Right.
Like there's lots of people who are looking at this going, "Oh my god, this is amazing." What do you mean it's not enough? Because it's like you 250 culture victory in this game is good. Like lots of people would struggle with.
No compliments is requested or required.
I'm not saying that as a compliment. I'm saying like when I found Russia, I was so devastated in my game. Like because I'm just going, I find Russia, and I was like, no, because I know that they're that civilization that like after turn 140 is just going to start adding 10 tourists a turn.
Yeah.
Like they're just
Yeah.
going to start producing so much culture that, and I just like my heart sunk, and I was like, this is going to be awful. I'm now in just a slog.
That's in the future. What I wanted
yeah.
to show here is the map itself, right? Like the
Yeah.
continent is sort of divided by this mountain ridge. So we have
Yeah.
a lot of protection from Alex.
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't have to worry about anybody because we all made friends. Now, the
Yeah.
difference in my game is that this northern part of the continent is not mine. They
Yeah.
are fighting it out between, Basil and Alex. And Khmer is actually a non-factor at all. They just stuck there in the whatever area, very small piece of land that, because there's a
Yeah.
mountain ridge there, they have no land to expand to.
Khmer has like the worst start
They
in this.
do.
And
They do.
I actually wanted to try and remake this map with being the Khmer and see if I could do anything with it, because he is literally backed into a corner. And I just looked at that and I was like, even with Khmer, that is a hard game.
Yeah, but like from our perspective, right? The South is
Yeah. Vital.
amazing. It's half of the continent that is basically ours. I mean,
Yep.
you're gonna have to be you're gonna have to play really inefficiently to
Yeah.
lose some of this land to like Alex, I guess, potentially,
Yeah.
or any other civ. But this is like where I recognize, for example, that this tundra is all like national parks, in my
Yep.
opinion, in the culture game. So, and this area right here, I mean, this is ridiculous, right?
Oh yeah, that city. Oh my god, that was like my favorite. Like I
I mean, this is
that.
literally where I'm like sending my settler right away, because I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure I get my hands on this, because I was like, you know what? I still need a campus at some point. And instead of a holy site, this became my +5 campus.
Why did you need a campus?
Because I need to keep up with science anyway.
No, you don't. Why?
Because science provides modifiers like computers, for example, or some other stuff like telecom. I need telecom to boost, I don't remember, social media policy at the end of the game.
You don't need science. Like it's a culture game.
But how do you get science? You need those modifiers, like
Population. Population gets you enough science. You have to. I mean, granted, you have to make a choice between steal our flight, which path you're going to go. You're only going to get one. So you're not getting really far down that science tree. But you don't need you don't need a lot of science to make a science game, or to make a culture game work. You need cartography, and then you need to choose. You go steal for Eiffel Tower and all the walls for tourism, or do you go flight and radio for seaside resorts and getting tourism to improvements that give culture?
Because in this game specifically, I got to the point where I had future civics in the civics tree and castles in science. You know what I mean? So it's not though, because I really need it other modifiers in my game for tourism. You don't need those modifiers, but I do.
Well, yeah, but you need those modifiers because you're building like campuses instead of holy sites to increase your faith so that you can expand.
Oh, excuse me. My faith by that time was like, I don't know,
You have
500.
more faith. I get it. I get it.
The number of rock bands and national parks that I built. I mean, granted, I finished what, like 70 turns after you.
Yeah.
I guess that's the difference. But here we have a very similar kind of setup. Well, similar in one way, but very different than the other. Because Soger has what, 3 cities, and it just the way they're developed that is very different. You have your government plaza almost built with it. No, you have your government plaza with the ancestral hall almost built. And I'm sure you're going to rush it with some chops. And, what, you started on the Wonder already?
Yeah, because I have nothing else to build in that city. What else am I going to build in my
Before we get to that, though, I want to ask you about because I went with Magnus, then Amani. You went Amani, then Magnus, which is, relatively similar,
Yeah.
But then you just go ahead and pick Liang. As opposed to, like, let's say Pingala, because your cities are getting bigger, right? Like, population is getting bigger. Pingala kind of makes sense at that point. But what is the logic behind this?
I will argue that Liang is your best yield saving governor if a game is going well, because it's going to make every builder worth one more charge. And I knew that builders were going to be a premium this game because my faith output was low. My gold, if you're relying on gold to buy builders and settlers, you're in for a rough game. Because you also have to buy buildings, you have to buy everything else.
Yeah.
So I needed every builder to get 4 charges, because then when you buy 3 builders, you're actually getting a 4th builder for free. So the little bit that Pingala would give me, Pingala is my next choice. But once again, stage of game, I need to keep advancing. It's not that Pingala isn't a better choice in 20 turns. It's just right now, Liang is going to keep my empire moving forward.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because if your land allows for a lot of chops, then the Liang makes sense, right? That's the whole point here, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. Or for people who don't chop, right, Liang doesn't make any sense either. Unless
it still does, but I would never pick her before Pingala. If you're just refusing to chop, you're still saving, but I don't think the savings is going to be enough to offset what you're losing.
So now you started on Apadana. You're going to have to move Magnus there first, right?
Yep.
Before you start chopping. This city has a couple of woods that would provide you the chops. Probably enough chops for, well, I don't know, 400 plus Magnus. That's probably 50, 60 chops, right?
Yeah.
50, 60 production. Plus there is some stone. But Apadana is one of the most important wonders for you. Explain why.
2 envoys for every wonder created in the city afterwards. This is absolutely broken strong. Because if you're doing an Apadana rush and you're chopping out wonders, that's just giving you a leg up on the AI. And like I said all the time, you're never going to beat the AI in an envoy race because they get down the culture tree faster than you. But if you can get envoys early and get a head start, you can get Caesarian with city-states before the AI can come in with their large amount of envoys and sort of muscle you out. So it's one of those things, if I can get like 4 or 6 envoys early game, I can pick up Caesarity, get those Caesarity bonuses, and I'm going to keep those till about turn 180. By about that point of the game, the AI is going to start, like Alexander's going to focus on one city-state, Kabir's going to focus on another, and you're just not going to be able to keep Caesarity of all of them. But it's just that if you can get early envoys, you can pick up that Caesarity, and then you can get the bonuses and sort of run.
the number of envoys only makes sense when you get to 3 envoys, right? Like
Correct.
after that, you're gonna have to wait. You either have to take suzerainty or just save your envoy.
And it drove you insane one game where I had 4 envoys and I said I didn't have enough. In this game, I have 7 envoys and I don't have enough envoys to put any envoys on.
You're just saving them.
Yeah, I was sitting on 7 envoys, but I had 2 culture city states and 2 faith city states, and all 4 of them were contested. So even though I had 7 envoys, I had 0 envoys because I could lose all of them on one turn.
Well, here on turn 75, we see Apadana built.
Yep, Apadana's built because I chopped out the Oracle up in Kume just because Magnus is already there and I had the chops for it. And it was really, really late in the game for Oracle to still be available. And I wound up leaving Pingala in there just out of habit, leave Pingala in the Oracle city. And that was a mistake. I should have moved him. But more so, I wanted the faith savings when you're buying great people. So I just needed to finish that.
And then we have Hanging Gardens here as well, because Hanging Gardens gets easy to build when your city has like 20 production.
Oh yeah, Hanging Gardens is cheap. It adds housing in the city, which is super important, and it gives you increased growth. And like I say, the only time like anything matters is when you first settle a city, because you want to get up to 4 population or 7 population, get your district. So anything that increases growth is huge because it makes those first population gain faster. After that, I don't care. So Hanging Gardens is a cheap wonder, but it also helps in those early turns.
Okay. Now, the next thing I noticed that it's 39 faith per turn.
Yep.
Which is, setting you up for the next era to make sure you keep buying those settlers and builders if you need them.
Yeah.
And then we have a flipped city.
Yeah, that city fell to loyalty because
I fell
to loyalty pressure because I now have Basil completely blocked in. He has nowhere to go but north.
And what is happening here? This looks like a Khmer's city.
Khmer tried to forward settle Alexander. His city fell to loyalty because there's 3 different loyalty pressures going on there. There's Alexander, there's Basil, there's me. But I saw that, so I levied Jerusalem's army, surrounded it, and at the last possible minute grabbed it to hopefully float into the next era, and I was hoping Alexander wouldn't get a gold. Because right now, I believe me and Alexander are in the gold.
If you look at this city location, even if it's flipping to Alexander. And the little tooltip here from Ahmad shows you that Alex has a lot of pressure on the city. So even if you take over this city, how are you gonna... I mean, it's going to be difficult to hold it, I feel like. So... I mean, there are some couple of chops here, I guess, between the marshes and the rain.
I got one of the population chops. I also, like I said, I waited to take that city. I surrounded it so no one else could take it. And I made sure I had a trade route. And my trade routes were giving 3 food per turn because population gives loyalty. I get a governor in there right away. And I got as close to the end of the era as possible. Because, like I said, if I could get into the next era, it's very unlikely that Alexander was going to still be in a golden age because I had him effectively stopped as well. He had nowhere to expand his empire. So the AI is really bad at doing things. So being completely blocked in, he had nowhere left for heirs.
So at this point, what is your general direction for build order in your cities? It's turn 75. You're basically saying to yourself, okay, I got this. Yeah. So do you switch to, you keep building holy sites in your new cities, right?
It depends. If it's a good holy site, I'll build the holy site first. If it's just a holy site, I'm building the commercial hub first. Because trade routes, trade routes are what wins the game. If you
So
settle a
let me ask you
city,
this question though.
yeah,
In this specific instance,
yep,
I mean, you build in a commercial hub in Nicaea when there is a pretty decent spot for a holy site, and then
correct,
you're building a holy site in Aquileia,
yep.
whereas you could probably get away with like a commercial hub here
That
instead.
was I figured I was going to build the mausoleum there, so I'd need a harbor in Aquileia, however it's pronounced, because of the wood steer chop, which is a double production shop.
Yeah.
So you got 4 chops right there, which guarantees you a mausoleum. Also, the difference between the northern city and Aquileia, however, I can't remember. The difference is there's a rainforest there, and that is a half production, half growth chop. I need that population to keep pushing Alexander, and I didn't have a builder to go chop it. I also was at a deficit of trade routes at this point, which means I was settling more cities than I had trade routes available, and I needed to catch up to that so that when I was settling cities, they were getting trade routes right away. Because the sooner you can make a city produce something, the better your game's going to work. Just settling a city doesn't do you any good.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So you don't just expand blindly if you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
You pay attention to how many trade routes can supply and reinforce your new cities with food.
Because you'll
That's
look at the
interesting.
cities that don't get trade routes versus the cities that do get trade routes. You're getting your districts faster. The population is going faster. I'm going a culture to population religion, so I want my population to be going up because every four population is giving me culture. The more districts you're getting down, the more great people points you're getting. And that's why I say if it's a good holy site, yeah, I'm going to do it. Otherwise, if I'm at a deficit of trade routes, I will switch and just start building commercial hubs right away because a city working its own tiles is a worthless city. It's like a turn 50 city that has 1 population and 4 production is going to be 30 turns before you finish anything.
Right, without the trade route. And that's why Soger has holy sites and commercial hubs only as districts. That is crazy. Well, it's not crazy actually. That's part of your strategy. That is your focus, right? Even if it's a culture game, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I need to build a theater square as soon as possible." Not in this game, not with this leader, right? Generally, as far as I understand, focus on faith, focus on golden trade routes, set yourself up strategically, and then at some point make that transition to start popping theater squares in every city.
Well, and because people understand the concept of the snowball, you start up and you start growing, and as you grow, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But like building a theater square, yeah, you're getting a little bit more culture. You're getting an amphitheater. You're starting getting great rider points. But getting a trade route is actually increasing your snowball more because it's getting your population up where it's shortening your build times for everything that city's going to produce. So that's the actual snowball is getting cities that are functional out there. Culture and science are super important in a tourism or in a culture or science victory, but it's easier to acquire after you have your cities in place than trying to get culture and science and also trying to build an empire. Unless you're going domination, most of that stuff can just wait. You want to get as much culture as you can get, but you don't want to sacrifice expansion at that.